Hello and welcome to the Fast Track Travel Clinic with me, Simon Calder. And let's start with aviation, a business that doesn't always operate logically, as Rupert Arms from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia discovered after he booked a British Airways flight home from Glasgow via London.
Shortly afterwards, I fixed a meeting in London at the date of departure to Jeddah. So I phoned BA to say I would start the journey at Heathrow. I was told BA would charge me $80 not to fly. I asked what would happen if I turned up at Heathrow having not taken the Glasgow flight. They said the onward reservation to Jeddah would be cancelled.
Rupert, it's just 2 words: tariff abuse. BA and many other network carriers often sell connecting flights more cheaply than non-stops. And even though Glasgow to Jeddah is always more expensive than the fare from London, BA tells me it applies the rules regardless of fare differences. Joy Thrower from the English county of Derbyshire faces another expensive change of plan. She'd booked a year ahead a trip to Turkey this summer along with her granddaughter.
In the meantime, she became pregnant, with the happy event due very soon. Since my granddaughter was clearly unable to travel, we wanted to transfer the ticket to her sister, but the airline said it would cost the equivalent of $300. Is this reasonable, and do we have any options?
Joy, I'm afraid this is standard practice among most airlines for a name change. Indeed, I've heard of many more expensive examples simply to correct a mistake on the passenger's name. The airlines insist they do this to prevent so-called warehousing. In the past, some unscrupulous travel agents would buy a bunch of tickets well ahead and sell them at a premium close to departure, then change the names. Clearly, your case is completely different, but if you've talked to the airline and they've refused to be flexible, just search for a cheaper flight with another airline. As a result of the conflict in North Africa this year, many carriers have switched capacity from Tunisia and Egypt to Turkey, which means you may find a bargain. Next, a reminder that if a bargain sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Melita writes from Manila to say,
a friend of mine who's too upset to contact Fast Track herself got a call from a travel agency saying she'd won a vacation in the US and that to claim it she would need to pay a booking fee of $400. She has now also been told she has to buy flights to America, which she simply can't afford. What can she do?
Melita, several companies specialise in the unpleasant business of high-pressure cold calling, in which they promise a free vacation, which then turns out to be very expensive. Because this is a cross-border scam, I fear there's not a hope of retrieving any of the money she's lost. Indeed, your friend should watch out for rogues following rogues who promise to reclaim the money on her behalf, but only if she pays them a fee. So, if someone calls to say you've won a competition that you didn't even enter, politely suggest they give the prize to someone else. Finally, Fast Track viewer Tony Kendrick is lucky enough to be going on a real vacation to the Caribbean island of Grenada. He has a simple question.
I'm not sure whether to take East Caribbean dollars or US dollars.
Tony, congratulations on your choice of destinations. Grenada is one of the loveliest islands in the former British West Indies. As you say, the local currency, shared with Antigua, St. Lucia and other islands, is the East Caribbean dollar. The reality, though, is that the US dollar prevails, as in so much of the Caribbean. Now, the EC dollar is locked to the greenback at a rate of $2.70 to $1 American dollar, and most enterprises accept US currency and respect the official rate. Well, that's all we've got time for in this session of the Fast Track Travel Clinic. From me, Simon Calder, goodbye.
Thanks, Simon. Now, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, tourists have flocked to the city to see locations associated with the Cold War. But when it comes to buildings connected with the Second World War, well, there's a great deal more sensitivity. Alan Maloney now reports on a group that provide tours throwing a fresh insight into a very unexplored part of Berlin's history.
April 1945. From the east came the forces of Stalin. By the beginning of May, Berlin had been captured and the city lay in ruins. The memory of the time under Hitler's regime has always been problematic for Berliners, and it's only in recent years that many have begun to feel comfortable remembering. Last year, the city hosted its first ever Hitler exhibition, and although it drew criticism from some, it's a sign that the city is ready to recognise its past.
Just below our feet here is the Führer bunker, or Hitler's personal bunker.
A past that for decades remained hidden underground. Underneath the city lies a wealth of unseen and forgotten features associated with the war.
The pioneers of the underground history here in Berlin were the beer brewers. Why?
But now a not-for-profit group called Berlin Underworlds is hoping to offer tourists the chance to experience hidden railway lines and abandoned bunkers. You can even walk through the very rooms where people would have sheltered from the bombing with their families.
It is difficult on one side because you always have to, you do not want only to talk about one side of the war, you also want to show the other side, but you have also people who, for example, suffered of World War II on your tour sometimes. So you also have to be careful in what you're talking about, especially when you do tours in German.
The corridors narrow, the rooms dark, the memory of the time hangs heavily in the air. The German capital experienced over 360 air raids during the Second World War, and while the bunkers offered some protection, they provided little help against a direct hit from the air. The group has several tours and they range from $8 to $26. But its biggest challenge so far is the renovation and preservation of this abandoned gasometer.
The architect of Hitler came here with his engineers and they found out how to build in a bunker for 6,500 people planned. At the end of the war, around 35 or 40,000 people were here.
During the Second World War, this structure took on a new importance as one of Germany's largest bunkers. It operated like a mini-city with hospitals, food stores and sleeping quarters for tens of thousands of people. This latest project has been 3 years in the making and taken countless thousands of man-hours in order to get the building into its present condition. Its aim is to take tourists on a journey through the past 130 years of Berlin's history. Even in a thick coat, the inside is bitterly cold, and it takes a long time for your eyes to get used to the darkness. While it survived the war completely intact, the job of reopening it has been a difficult task. But gradually, its history is being revealed to a new generation.
It's like you have your own personal moon landing, coming in a building or drop your feet to a place many decades no one was in. To open it, to reopen it, to renew it, and then to show it to the public.
Where once buildings like this were left abandoned for fear of glorifying the past, a new confidence in Berlin has led to their exploration. History is no longer buried, but put on display, hoping to prevent the mistakes of the past from being repeated in the future.
Alan Maloney there reporting from Berlin. Sadly, that's all we've got time for this week on Fast Track, but join us again next week when
Fiona will be looking forward to the royal wedding and asking just how important the monarchy is to the tourist market. And don't forget that you can catch up with all the latest Fast Track stories by logging on to our website at bbc.com/Fast Track. And if you're after even more advice and inspiration, check out bbc.com/travel, where you can read about the best 40 free attractions in New York.
But until then, from me, Rajan Datar, thanks for watching, and wherever you're travelling next, have a good trip. Goodbye.